So, welcome to Bluewave's webinar series, The Current. It is a continuation of our conversations on the demystifying AI topic. This webinar series is designed to provide information on the latest technologies and how they can help solve your business's challenges. When we look at ROI opportunities for our clients, we look at the building blocks of technology, people, performance, and experience, all in service of company efficiency and driving revenues. Today, we will be exploring AI and how it can drive positive impact in the people part of that equation, and more specifically, in hiring. If we can all agree that how we start impacts how we finish, then we can all agree that the hiring journey and its successful outcomes are most critical to company success. Along those lines, today we invited our strategic partner, Daniel Ash, CEO of Journeyfront, to be our guest in today's conversation. I will be your moderator. I am Paul Weiss, Vice President of Solution Advisory here at Bluewave. Welcome, Daniel. It is nice to see you here today. Thank you for joining us.
You as well, Paul. Good to be here.
Excellent. Today will be an open discussion based on some simple question and answering, and we hope that all of our viewers find value and can take away some good insights from our conversation today. Daniel, before we dive into the questions, please feel free to introduce yourself, tell us a bit about Journeyfront as well.
Yeah, so first of all, great to be here. Proud partner with Bluewave. I am the CEO, founder of Journeyfront. We are an intelligent hiring suite that helps companies improve hiring speed and accuracy. Our specialty is particularly around volume hiring. So we work with organizations, call centers, warehouses, manufacturing, where they're hiring a lot of people in a given period of time. Often these organizations really struggle with turnover, keeping those people in the first 3 to 6 months, driving performance outcomes associated with that massive hiring process that they manage. So it's good to be here. Looking forward to diving into some interesting topics.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Daniel. So a few questions for you. Let's start kind of broadly with large language models like OpenAI and ChatGPT creating universal awareness of AI, and basically every commercial you see on TV now from Amazon and IBM and everybody else that has their branded AI. That is an expression of AI, a version of AI, but not really very specifically the utility of AI solving specific use cases like someone like Journeyfront may. And so there's probably as much confusion as there is excitement about AI in the general, both kind of consumer and business marketplace. Do you, from your experience, from what you're seeing, and from the businesses you've already impacted, do you believe that AI, and specifically Journeyfront's expression of that, can fundamentally change how organizations hire and track the performance of their people and continually improve the hiring process?
The answer is absolutely. Whenever you go through a technology wave like this, it unleashes new opportunities to drive ROI in areas by an order of magnitude. Hence, organizations need to be taking this seriously. My perspective is, however, that the fundamentals of, let's say, hiring, which is what we're talking about today, still apply. So in that sense, at the end of the day, the value props that AI is driving are not new. They're the same value props that have always been driven as it relates to hiring. Certainly, hiring will be transformed to drive improvements in speed, efficiency, accuracy, achieving levels not possible before AI. But to be clear, those have been the goals prior as well. So yes, I think order of magnitude, more potential now than there's ever been, which is exciting. Also can create probably some anxiety for a lot of organizations, because that means you need to not be sleeping on this opportunity. However, all of it comes down to still fundamentals, understanding the problems you're trying to solve, the ROI you're trying to drive, and in what areas. And so I think, as is the case with any new technology where it's, the shiny new object, you still want to stay grounded in the objectives and the value props that are fundamental to, in this case, we're talking about hiring and what the focus of it should be.
It's very interesting that you say that. And with the broad perception of AI possibly being I offer it a prompt and it tells me things or creates content or creates images. And that's the experience with ChatGPT and OpenAI. To your point, organizations have been seeking automation, have been seeking acceleration, have been seeking learning faster or aggregating data sets for a very long time. You know, not to overcook the hiring conversation, but I actually like to use the analogy of hiring an employee as to thinking about the utility of AI in an organization. We believe that it is always an augmentation conversation, a better together AI and humans, and AI is going to bring skill set to the table that maybe humans by ourselves cannot, and the same is true in reverse. As you consider where the utility of AI is in your organization, you think about, and I would believe it to be exactly like this, you'd write a job description for what is the work I need done, what is my expectation of the impact and outcome of that work, how could I measure the success of that work being done, and how would I budget economically to fund that hiring of that employee. And we really view the implementation of AI in exactly the same way. In any organization considering where AI can affect it, maybe that's a simple place to go. Think about where in your organization automating, accelerating, generating content, getting better, moving faster, whatever it is, can benefit from AI. Start there. Think about the job. Think about what the outcomes are you're seeking, what you would budget in connection to those sought outcomes, and make great decisions.
Yeah.
What we're finding then with Journeyfront is that you're doing exactly that, really right in the challenge of the hiring practice. And for those involved in the operation of hiring, they're well aware of those challenges. Many of us that sit here today may not be as aware of not just the challenges of accurate and efficient hiring, but also the significant benefits of improving both the accuracy and efficiency of hiring. So let's talk about that, Daniel, from your experience. How is Journeyfront and your AI being used by leading organizations to drive faster and more efficient hiring? And then we'll talk about the accuracy of hiring.
Yeah. Um, First, if I could just draw on that analogy you used, which I thought was a great one. If you were deploying AI akin to you're creating a job description, how would you approach that? Best practices around creating a job description are around you start with the end in mind. Like, what are the outcomes that this person in this job will have to achieve? And the reason you start with that end in mind is because if you do not, everything you write around the traits this person has to do, or even the activities we choose to emphasize that they'll need to engage in during the job, may be off target with the ultimate end in mind, right? And then the second aspect of that analogy I draw out is AI is not going to be cheap. It's a sophisticated technology that has massive ROI. So there will be costs associated with it, not just the cost of, let's say, a solution that you're purchasing, Journeyfront or otherwise, or building something your own. But even just the man hour cost of implementing it, because that cost is so high, akin to any role that you were hiring for where there's a high cost. It's going to be all the more important that you're really focused on the ROI this thing will bring. And you've called out the first area, which is faster or more efficient hiring. That certainly is one of the ends within hiring in general, right? You have to have a certain speed of that process. If your hiring process takes a year, by the time you get to the end of it, there's no candidates left. They've already gone elsewhere, right? And data shows that top candidates are off the market very quickly. In some cases, research shown within 10 days. Efficiency, right? It does matter how much this hiring process costs your organization. You could throw 1,000 people at it and probably, have a good outcomes at least as it relates to hiring the right people. But it is a very expensive process if you don't invest in being more efficient with it. So certainly AI's focus area is automating of most tedious or costly, and in some cases, the most important tasks associated with that hiring process can go a long ways to driving ROI for the business. So we're talking automating candidate screening, which is Journeyfront's specialty, and the evaluation of the candidate, are the different ways we can speed up that process, improve the efficiency of that process. Certainly AI is being used to automate a lot of the candidate communications and interaction, chat bots and so on. Automating things like recruitment marketing, scanning large sets of data on job boards, what have you, and pulling that in. But at the end of the day, it's all about, let's take this hiring process with all the steps that it involves and all the cost associated with that, and how can we use the automation that AI brings to dramatically reduce the cost of those things. One other area, which is one of my favorites, is AI, and we'll get to this when you talk about accuracy, can also identify parts of the hiring processes that aren't needed at all to begin with, right? There's nothing more efficient than not doing something, than taking something you were doing and no longer doing it at all, right? And certainly if there's a step in your hiring process that's unnecessary, think of it like a manufacturing process. Of course, you should remove that process because there will be savings accordingly. But at the end of the day, that is one of the value props when you go back to your job description analogy that AI should most certainly focus on is, efficiency, speed of that hiring process.
There are thousands and thousands and thousands of organizations. Everybody hires at various volumes for different roles and reasons. And every single one of those organizations may or may not have visibility into the efficacy of each particular step in their hiring process. Is it adding value? Is it simply creating lag or wasting time? Is it, in some cases, even contraindicative of a good hire? Am I getting bad information or bad output from a profiling exercise or something else that may otherwise inform how we hire? And how would we ever know that? And that tracking the life cycle of an employee back to how they were hired and learning continuous improvement is something that I think is huge value. Now I'm getting ahead of myself because right now we're talking about the faster and efficient hiring. And these benefits tend to be, let's say, more immediately realized, right? Hours spent in each step. So talk a little bit about just some specific examples. You gave us a couple, but walk through a typical hiring practice and show us where I can find immediate benefit in reducing man hours of effort, or increasing the ability to scan and decide on candidates so I don't lose great candidates as well. Talk a little bit about that, and then I want to shift to the accuracy discussion.
Yeah, so organizations are different in how they manage the workflow of their general process, but generally speaking, they source applicants often across a variety of channels. Could be social media, could be LinkedIn, could be a job board like Indeed or what have you, could be employer referrals. They're often coming in from many sources. Not all sources are created equal. Some cost more, some lead to more effective candidates, which we'll get into when we talk about accuracy. But there's certainly a sourcing stage there. Some organizations have automated that. That's the whole point of a lot of these job boards and technologies, right? You don't have to go out and call people all day long. There's places where people looking for jobs are already, right? So that sourcing stage, number one. Second, there's a whole process of reviewing all those applications. Third, there's some kind of phone screening process where a recruiter, or in some, with large call centers, BPOs, they'll call them often screeners, will be calling those people, right, to actually schedule the phone screen even prior to, and then finally some kind of final interview or round of final interviews. If you were to, and I would strongly suggest every organization do this, if you were to look at what is the amount of time that's spent doing each of those stages of the process, it's going to be the most expensive during the phone screen and the interview, because now you're spending meaningful time talking to these applicants, and there's a dollar cost there, right? But The reviewing of manual applications as well it can be very costly and really sucks up a recruiter's time. And if you have recruiters doing a lot of that, you're going to need more recruiters, and that's not going to scale well either, by the way. So the areas that technology and AI can be much more effective is actually helping automate a lot of that reviewing of applications. So I'll give you an example. So we have a client that they post a job and they get 1,000 applicants like in a day, and their recruiters would try to filter this down where they would say, all right, let's look at the employee referrals, right? And maybe that grabs you a small subset of those applications, and then you start with them and you move them through the process. But then they would just start reviewing applications that requires a person to actually read every single statement. Maybe there's some knockout questions about, work, relevant work experience or right to work in the geography you're hiring them for. But largely it's just reviewing applications and resumes. And so you've got to take a step back and think, how effective is reviewing an application and a resume truly at identifying a top candidate? Because is the effectiveness of that highly manual process worth the fact that it takes you a long time to do it? And often by the time you get done with candidate 900, before moving people through the process, candidates 1 through 800 are already gone, right? So there's certain ways technology, that same client I just referenced, now they can set up an assessment, language proficiency assessment, a job simulations and skills test, some automated screening questions that all score the candidate on the back end as soon as they answer, and it immediately stack ranks all candidates top to bottom, and with a push of a button, sort all applicants, move them into the next stage. So it's gone from taking them a whole week, I would say, down to instantaneously, the same day they apply, they're making decisions and moving them through, right? That's just the reviewing applicant phase. The more effectively you do that, though, back to that comment that if you were to map out your costs across each stage, you're going to see that most of it's in the phone screen and especially interview stage, just due to you're spending now 20 minutes, not 2 minutes reviewing an application, 20 minutes, or now 45 minutes in an interview. The more effectively you can go from 100,000 applicants down to that 5,000 that you do a phone screen on, and let's say 2,000 you do an interview on, that is going to drive the bulk of your ROI from a hiring efficiency and I would say speed standpoint.
It's I have an analogy for that, an analogy I should say. We at Bluewave, excuse me, when we interact with our clients in their efforts to improve technology in any number of different areas, whether it's cybersecurity, contact center, AI, or the like, companies have a general practice, right? What do I need? Put together a bid spec, go to market, perhaps an RFP, and then the time bloats. I have to review all the RFPs. I have to now pull in stakeholders and operators to sit in 90-minute demonstrations with vendor after vendor after vendor, only to, with always the intent of disqualifying until you get to a finish line. And the challenge with that process is that there are so many wasted hours interviewing applicants or providers that will never have met your needs, and it takes too long to figure that out. So in the benchmarking and the database and the experience of working with all of these vendors, moving companies along faster so they commit the time where it's smart to be spent and they don't waste it where it doesn't need to be wasted. Very much the same dynamic. The more we know, the better decisioning, the more we can trust our data, the more we can make the right decisions and move along and not linger and waste time on applicant and phone screen reviews for folks that maybe never had a chance to work here anyway, right?
Right.
Same type of process. So now let's talk, when we talk about the accuracy of hiring, folks may say, well, what does that really mean? It's simply hiring the right people for the right job as often as possible. And those efficiencies or the benefits there tend to be, let's say, lagging indicators around turnover reduction and tenure and graduation rate. But it's a continuous improvement effort that if efficiency and speed on the front end drive immediate benefit, these lagging indicators drive even more significant benefit. So talk a little bit about examples there.
Yeah. So this is so important because organizations need to take a step back. Often when they're so siloed, focusing on, we got to get people in seats tomorrow. They're so focused on speed and accuracy speed, that they forget the whole point in the first place is to hire a person that achieves a sufficient level of ROI in that role to have justified all the costs of getting that candidate to the hire point, and then all the costs of training and onboarding them. In many of these organizations, especially where there's high volume hiring taking place, you'll see organizations that have turnover of, I mean, I've seen organizations that lose 25% of candidates in the first 7 days, or 25, or some of them, they don't even show up day one. Certainly 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of candidates in the first 1 month or 2 months or 9 months, right? And yet they still have hires, by the way, that will last a year, 2 years, 5 years. I was recently at CCW speaking at a fireside where I raised my hand and said, all right, earliest turnover person, what is it? They said day zero or day one. Longest tenured employee in your contact center, what is it? And people were still had their hands raised when I got to 20 plus years, right? So the ROI of a hire, and I'm just talking retention, let's not even talk about like performance, varies so much across hires that if you're only focused on improving speed and efficiency, well then, geez, skip the whole hiring process. What's more efficient than a hiring process that takes the first person that raises their hand? You might as well, right? The whole point of it all is to achieve a minimum threshold of a quality of candidate that achieves the outcomes you care about. And that's what accuracy is about. It's about, are we accurately hiring people that achieve that minimum level of retention, if not much greater, that we need to recoup all of our costs and hopefully make some profit on it? And are we achieving a hire that achieves that minimum level of performance as well? And the reason we use the term accuracy and not just quality of hire is because quality of hire is the metric, right? It's the golden metric in hiring. It's the one that matters the most. The reason we use accuracy is to remind people it's not just about quality people out there. There's plenty of quality people out there that might be able to work in a contact center and do well, but they're not willing to. They don't want to. They wouldn't stay. Accuracy helps us focus, to your point, the right person for this specific job.
You know, there's something else that we haven't talked about, and it just kind of came to me as we were speaking here. The hiring process is, in fact, a two-way courtship. You also have to have the candidate decide they want to work for you. And how many excellent candidates might you have identified that choose to work elsewhere? And sometimes that may be straightforward on the package or the geography, but also perhaps impacted by the hiring experience in the first place. And if I get a sense of engagement and collaboration and effectiveness within that process, maybe I'm more likely to want to be hired by you, and you are my selection. That could be a let's say, a lost cost in the hiring process, that it just felt piece of meatish or haphazard, and maybe I don't want to work here. And
Right.
so I think that's another additional benefit, is the collaboration and engagement, because it is in fact a two-way conversation always in hiring.
Right. Yeah. Um, the experience the candidate's having does matter. The extent to which their expectations align with the job, but you can't hire somebody against their will. They may say yes, they may sign your offer letter, but in today's world where they can go across the street or get another job the next week, you do want to make sure that this aligns with what the person wants and needs. And really at the end of the day, it's fit, right? There's a lot of these volume hiring organizations that stress about the candidate who never completed anything in the application. And they spend a lot of time going after that candidate, trying to get them to respond, right? Calling them up, spending more and more money trying to get them to respond. Well, that's one way to think about it. But at the end of the day, what if that person applied to 1,000 jobs on Indeed's Quick Apply? They're not interested in you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't focus on that candidate that isn't interested, when you can build a process that identifies the people who are and that fit and moves them efficiently, quickly through the process, and you have data to suggest they're an accurate match. Let's move forward. There's no need for us to have like a 30-to-1 or 100-to-1 applicant to hire ratio if we can more accurately and quickly identify the ones that are 1-to-1.
So with the what I think are fairly clearly illustrated benefits of faster, efficient, and more accurate hiring, and all of the ROI that can deliver in reducing attrition, in reducing hours spent, and simply finding people to perform their jobs more effectively for longer for your organization. Why isn't every organization picking up their phone and calling Journeyfront first, right? And the answer, to a degree, I'll step ahead and answer it, because we talk to companies every day. Companies that make decisions sometimes based on triggers and sometimes based on intents. And if the trigger is, where am I feeling obvious pain, companies react to that. But unfortunately, that's not always the biggest measure of benefit. Sometimes even a process with an organization that is not obviously painful could be significantly improved, even more so than the painful process, perhaps. So forming intentions, to your point, when you hire with the end in mind, think about the benefit of outcome. Most organizations have some clarity on the things they know aren't working well, maybe a little bit challenged on causality or how to solve for those challenges. But a lot of companies still do struggle with the benefit of outcome. And part of that is paralysis by analysis. Part of that is uncertainty or lack of awareness of what better could look like. And as fast as the marketplace is moving today, there's just a lot of we don't know what we don't know. So along those lines, with all that you can deliver to organizations and have delivered to organizations, what is your feeling that is stopping companies from leveraging an AI-based platform like Journeyfront in its hiring? Is it lack of awareness, uncertainty on the how and why, governance, compliance concerns? Where are you seeing the impediments?
Yeah, I mean it's lack of awareness, right? We're a venture-backed, VC-backed, early stage startup technology that everyone's heard of Oracle and ADP, and maybe some of your legacy assessment solutions. We're kind of like a intelligent hiring suite means there's an applicant tracking suite comparative component of it, but also an assessment and an analytics component of Journeyfront. Um, Organizations just haven't heard of us yet. Lot of
And they're
organizations,
so
but
steeped in the usuals that they just don't recognize it can be different and better.
yeah, I would say that there's an urgency in hiring, where they have to focus on executing, and perhaps no one's taking a step back and saying, is there a way to optimize this further? And the answer is that there is. Um, if we had a lot of people in an audience in front of us, and you asked them, um, how many of you are actually tracking quality of hire in a consistent manner, let's say with each hiring cohort, very few would raise their hands. Now the leading organizations would, and I'm proud to report that every single organization using Journeyfront is now tracking this. But the biggest and most and lost opportunity within hiring is that everyone's really investing in these hiring processes and hiring these people, and there are no mechanisms in place to take the data being collected on candidates that we are using to drive decision making. Now, data could be in a resume, it could be organized in a more effective manner, like Journeyfront helps with, but nobody is taking what data we have on these candidates and comparing it to the actual new hire retention and performance associated with those candidates. And that's the fundamental innovation that Journeyfront's technology brings. It's a feedback loop akin to the feedback loops that are already commonplace in marketing or finance and all these other worlds, where it's a no-brainer to you build a budget and then you track actuals against the budget. In finance, you spend marketing dollars and then you track the ROI, the return revenue associated with those marketing dollars. Anytime where you're spending lots of money and doing things over and over again, you should be tracking the efficacy. That feedback loop is the efficacy. So there's many organizations that don't even realize that they're playing make believe in their hiring process. Sorry to be a little upfront about it, meaning they don't even realize that a lot of what they're doing in the hiring process is not leading to outcomes that they actually care about. You could skip this process, or you could certainly, those 7 questions you ask in the phone screen, only 2 of them are actually effective, and the other 5 are noise that actually lead to worse hires, not better hires. You know,
Mhm.
so the fundamental innovation that we are pushing at Journeyfront as kind of the leader in this area is the importance of hiring should be a data-driven process. There is tons of data. We're just throwing it away once we hire the person and forgetting what we thought about them compared to what actual outcomes we see with them later. Certainly in any way that we're certainly broadly, I'm saying, not Journeyfront and our clients, but broadly like throwing away the effectiveness of that data when in reality, that data and AI, by the way, is really good at pattern recognition. That's, you know, the innovation we can now put forth for the world is you can identify pattern just by continuing to focus on hiring like you've always done and unfortunately had to do with the hiring goals you have, and let technology identify patterns around what from hiring is most predicting retention and performance and what is not at all and could be removed from the process. So you can take that data and improve efficiency by removing things that aren't predictive, and you can improve accuracy at the same time by emphasizing and using that data to predict outcomes associated with candidates for the things that are predictive.
So that was powerful, and my next question, and you might have answered it in advance with what is the biggest takeaway that you would like viewers to, having heard what we've talked about today, to start thinking about or recognizing or realizing, and I'll give an answer and then rely on your even better answer. But with what you just said, data is, what do we want to call it? The new oil, the new gold, right? Everybody wants to make effective, best decisions on good, clean, accurate data across every aspect of an organization. Most folks are thinking about that in the perspective of their customers, right? And how do I communicate to them? How do I drive their experiences, understand their journeys, and convert them, sell them, keep them? Maybe not as often as they could or should about how they hire and then create the employee experience from day one. And so the idea that all of this valuable data is evaporating in most businesses' day-to-day operation is both frightening and encouraging because it's solvable, and Journeyfront is helping to solve that.
Right.
That for me is the takeaway, and if we look at it as a data challenge, then efficiency and speed and accuracy are obvious benefits.
Mhm. Yeah, that data, you should let data drive a lot of that decision making. Because again, without rooted in evidence, like if you say, is it more efficient to drop the phone screen in the hiring process? Well, if we're not optimizing for anything else, of course, like I said earlier, it's more efficient to drop everything in hiring. Because the ultimate goal of hiring is to hire somebody who stays long enough to recoup the costs you associated with hiring and ramping that person up, right? And to achieve some type of benefits, why you're willing to pay their payroll and benefits, right? So data can drive decision making in a much better way than opinions, right? Without opinion, there's a without data, you're just another person with an opinion. That's one of my favorite quotes. Another one is, without data, my opinion's always better than yours, right? Like, or your opinion's always better than mine. We're just guessing and arguing. But data gets us all on the same side of the table to really effectively drive, decision making around what can be removed from the process, sped up from the process, what needs to be most focused on during the hiring process. And you asked what to leave people with. If you were to, and I'll give you a real client example, because we do this with our clients, you can quantify the cost of your entire process. We have a client that hires about 4,000 people a year. We went through all the man hours involved, end to end, source to hire, and it was about $1.8 million in an actual cost. Now, 1.2 of that was sourcing costs, Indeed costs, whatever, paying these job boards and ad campaigns. Only 600K of that was the actual process of the selection process. But theoretically, if you automated 100%, which I agree isn't necessarily possible per se, but if you can get pretty close, by the way, but if you automated the whole thing, you'd have 1.8 million in savings, the whole thing. Now, we then looked at, that's the cost. So that's the cost of hiring and efficiency, 1.8 million. We then looked at what's the cost of their turnover. It's about 39 million. And without getting into the details of how we did this, we also looked at what's the cost of low productivity, and it's about 33 million. So hiring people that turn over or that aren't productive had a cost of 71 million compared to that 1.8 million of hiring inefficiency. So the costs associated with hiring inaccuracy are about 40x if you include the sourcing costs, but 120x the cost of hiring inefficiency if you just include the process of the hiring process itself. Meaning the ROI from driving hiring accuracy is by orders of magnitude greater than the ROI of just hiring efficiency.
Without even thinking about the potential of how those inaccurate hires might impact customer experience or have other residual effect. I left you because I had a bad experience dealing with this less than perfect employee. So the ramifications of bad hires go well beyond even just that cost of attrition and the like, but also the experience, the impact they may have on other employees and or customers within an organization, all things to be thought about. So, well, thank you so much, Dan, for your time today. We again, this is our Bluewave webinar series, the current continuation of our Demystifying AI conversations. Daniel Ash, CEO of Journeyfront, helped us, I think, learn an awful lot and think really hard about where Journeyfront is driving value, where AI is making a difference in an area that some organizations may not be aware presently that AI is making the difference that it can. And so we certainly appreciate everyone here who will have watched this video. Daniel, for your time today as well. And we look forward to future conversations.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Great to be with you.
Thank you as well. All right. Take care.